Well, I guess if there is one thing that we will be able to count on with this idiotic administration, it's that they will continue to dig themselves into a deeper hole because they just don't know when to shut their mouth. There was a recent tragedy where a military helicopter collided with a commercial airliner, killing 70 people near the Washington, D.C. airport. And in his first briefing to address the situation, Donald Trump came out and blamed the Biden administration and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And instead of, maybe walking it back, saying, hey, maybe I got this one wrong, it was the heat of the moment type of thing, the Trump administration runs to the White House to issue an executive memorandum to blame the Biden administration and DEI efforts. I really wish I could make this stuff up, but we are living in the worst timeline that I could possibly think of at this particular moment. Let's go ahead and take a look at Donald Trump signing this memorandum, and then we will discuss.
Second, for your signature, we have a presidential memorandum titled Immediate Assessment of Aviation Safety. In light of the damage done to aviation safety by the Biden administration's DEI and woke policies, what this presidential memorandum orders is for your Secretary of Transportation and FAA administrator, in this case acting FAA administrator, to basically ensure that we are actively undoing all of that damage, that we are assessing how much damage was done, and that we're ensuring that people hired within the FAA, in keeping with your memorandum of January 21st, are only the most outstanding, capable people for the jobs that they're being hired into.
In other words, competence.
Yes, sir. Elevating competence over everything else instead of the DEI policies that were pursued by the Biden administration.
I think everyone understands that. And Obama.
Yes.
Both of them. Okay, but Biden much worse. Not even a contest. What they've done is just crazy in so many other ways.
So I really have two things to say about this. Why is it that every time Donald Trump is signing one of these memorandums or an executive order, that there is some minion off to the side explaining away what he is supposed to sign? Why does Donald Trump never know what he is about to sign his name to? Can somebody please tell me that? He literally looks like a senile old man being told to sign on the dotted line to, fulfill his life insurance policy or something. It is absolutely insane. He is the president of the United States, and he looks like an incompetent old man who has no idea what the hell he is doing. And secondly, what the hell does he think that this presidential memorandum is supposed to do? Oh, I blame the Biden administration and the woke and the DEI policies. Bad boy. What are we doing here, folks? What are we doing here? This makes absolutely no sense. I'm speechless. I'm literally speechless. Donald Trump is then asked straight up, did gender or race play a role or not? And I kid you not. This was literally 3 seconds after he just signed this memorandum blaming DEI efforts. Listen to his answer.
Mr. President, to be clear, are you saying race or gender played a role in this tragedy?
It may have. I don't know. Incompetence might have played a role. We'll let you know that. But we want the most competent people. We don't care what race they are. We want the most competent people, especially in those positions. And, you're talking about extremely complex things. And if they don't have a great brain, a great power of the brain, they're not going to be very good at what they do, and bad things will happen.
So he says, well, I'm not really sure if DEI played a role or not. And then he goes on some rambling fit about competence and having the best brain. Like, why even bring up DEI if you have absolutely no proof to suggest that DEI played a role here? And obviously that is the case. It has been, less than 24 hours? Of course, we do not have any evidence to suggest that these types of policies played any type of role. This is just a way for the Trump administration to demonize women, people of color. I mean, what else is being done here? Gives them a convenient boogeyman to point the finger at while demonizing people that they would prefer not to have in their administration. But then when somebody asks about his recent buyout offer, something that could actually affect aviation safety, if you have, federal employees just walking out the door, listen to how Trump answers this question.
Mr. President, you've offered over 2 million federal workers the option to resign immediately. There are 50,000 FAA employees. Does this tragedy give you reason to reconsider that option of resignations because of concerns about staffing issues on airline safety?
If people aren't coming to work, if they're not going to come into the office and report as per the date that you know what it is, everybody knows what the date is, it's been very well documented, then they're going to be terminated.
So you're not concerned, though, that if many people take that offer, there could be shortages that could lead to safety issues?
Then they'll be replaced with very competent people. We have a lot of competent people in this country.
Again, we are living in the worst timeline. When you have a buyout offer, and the Trump administration came out and said they expect 5 to 10% of federal workers to take that offer, and you are also contending with an already existing shortage of air traffic controllers, how is your buyout offer not going to affect aviation safety? Instead, he just rambles on about competent people and they'll just be replaced because we got so many competent people in the country. We are currently experiencing a shortage of thousands of air traffic controllers. Does Trump just have some magic wand that he's going to wave and all of a sudden all of these positions are filled? No, but instead he just wants to divert blame away from anything that could contribute to the problem and instead point at things like DEI. So then somebody asks him, you have people who just died. If you're not sure that DEI played a role, then why even bring it up?
You have 64 people lost their lives last night. If you aren't confident that DEI had any role, why bring it up?
Well, all I'm talking about is competence. And we want in that particular position, we have to have the most competent people in our country because we're talking about lives. Now, it may or may not have had to do, but I don't like the fact that the helicopter was at the exact same level as the airplane. The helicopter should have been 1,000 feet or 500 feet above it or something below it. The plane was at 300 to 400 feet, or the plane should have been stopped because the helicopter could have stopped. The plane can't be stopped, but the plane was on a schedule that was, it was along a track. They call it a track.
And then he just continues to ramble on about how he thinks that things should have went down with the helicopter and the plane. But these are just the rantings and ravings of a lunatic. This man is clearly experiencing cognitive decline. He cannot answer questions directly, and instead, he just goes on these streams of consciousness rants to try to fill the time. It is absolutely pathetic. So, let's just recap what happened. An absolute tragedy occurs. A helicopter collides with a commercial airliner. They go down to the Potomac. There is presumably no survivors. Nearly 70 people are presumed dead. And in the first press conference to address the issue, Donald Trump comes out and blames it on DEI and the Biden administration. And so now we've been in nearly a 24-hour news cycle, or it will be a 24-hour news cycle, talking about these comments about DEI that Trump made. Now, I think it is perfectly reasonable to continue to ask Trump about this, but I find it a whole different can of worms altogether when you have people from the National Transportation Safety Board and you are asking them the same questions. Why in the world would the media be asking this guy about DEI? You are just playing into Trump's framing, and now you have allowed him to hijack the narrative And who knows how long this particular news cycle will last, but now we are talking about DEI instead of actual things that may have contributed to this very tragic accident. Just listen to how the NTSB person responds here.
We heard from President Trump today talking about DEI hiring policies.
Sorry, I forgot to say. It's hard to hear the reporter here, so he says, we heard from the president today talking about DEI hiring policies within the FAA.
Within the FAA and
associating that with the cause of this accident.
that with the cause of this accident.
And he says, what do you say to that? Here's his response.
What do you say to that?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't hear the remarks. I was briefing House and Senate members, but I believe, Chair, would you like to take that?
As part of any investigation, we look at the human, the machine, and the environment.
There are so many moving parts as far as aviation safety goes, but instead of asking real questions about real things that may have been involved with this accident, you are now asking the NTSB about DEI. You cannot allow Trump to hijack the narrative like this. Why not be asking about Donald Trump's hiring freeze? Did that affect the FAA? Did that contribute to aviation safety at all? What about this buyout offer? Have any air traffic controllers accepted that offer and has made the staffing shortage greater? But instead, we're asking about DEI. I find this to be a huge, huge issue. We allow Donald Trump to hijack the narrative time and time and time again with these foolish lines of inquiry. Any reasonable person would tell you that it is super duper unlikely that DEI played a role here. And we know that there is ongoing investigations to look at what went wrong. But we're just focusing on DEI. It is all a load of garbage. The media cannot allow Trump to continue to dictate the news cycles. This is part of why we are in this mess in the first place. So I just thought this was super interesting. Obviously, the Trump administration doesn't know when to shut its mouth. It digs itself into a deeper hole, talking about DEI and how it caused this horrible, horrible accident. And now we have the news cycle feeding into this DEI narrative as well, instead of asking real hard questions about what actually could have contributed to this tragedy. I will leave it there for now. Just food for thought. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. We have to build something here on the left that can adequately push back against all of this crap coming out of the right-wing media ecosystem and sometimes, as we see here, the legacy media. So if you do appreciate the work I do, please do remember to subscribe. If you want to see the absolute disaster that was the first press briefing after this tragic accident, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.